All right, welcome to the People Progressing podcast. And today I have another superstar from Thunder Ridge High School in the University of Florida women's basketball team, Carlie Needles. And Carlie, I want to thank you for coming on today. And just going to ask you first and foremost, kind of take us through your journey, where you grew up, some of the
Yeah.
things you like to do as a kid, and influences that you had growing up, and so forth.
Yeah, no, thanks for reaching out. I was really happy to see you your text through my phone, and I'm happy to be here. So thanks. Yeah, so I grew up in Parker, Colorado, which is just about 20 minutes south of Highlands Ranch, which is where I went to high school. And I have three sisters, so there's four girls in my family. My poor dad got stuck with a lot of estrogen.
Oh,
But,
man.
we were always, my dad is a very, like, I mean, when you say, he's a man's man, that's how he is, right? He plays sports and he's rough around the edges and will compliment you when he needs to or when you deserve it, but will also be like your toughest critic, right? So having us four girls, we all played sports. So I think he kind of hit the jackpot there. But I grew up watching him watch sports, and I actually, my older sister, who we joke around now, she has no athletic bone in her body. If you throw a ball at her, she her face, she covers her face and gets all afraid. But so my parents took her and signed her up for rec basketball, and I guess I was a year too young. I don't know. They didn't even ask me if I was interested. And so when my sister started playing, all the other little kids that are like 4, 5, 6, they're running around underneath the bleachers, going crazy, and I always wanted to sit there and watch the game. And I would just tug on my dad, like, will you please sign me up to play? I want to play. Right. And so the next year, he signed me up, and I was playing basketball and softball, and I loved it. I mean, that's kind of what took over, right? When you're like, what did you like to do? Obviously, I like to play with my friends and ride around on my bike around the neighborhood and stuff like that. But basketball quickly became my hobby, and I can't even remember life really without it. But I did play softball at the same time, and I love softball. I played until probably 8th grade, probably even before that. But it got to the point where, hey, you need to decide one or the other. And I decided basketball just because I'm more of a physical player, right? Like, obviously softball has its challenges, but basketball is way more fast paced and a lot more physical. And so decided to stick with that. And I played in all boy leagues. So my dad was like, if you want to be good at this, and you actually really want to be good at this, you got to play in the boy leagues. So until I couldn't play with the boys anymore, I played in the boy leagues. Played at the Y, I played at the rec center, I played at the park, all with boys, and I loved it. I kind of just felt like that's where, I belonged. And then fast forward to middle school, I joined my first club team, the Colorado Hoopsters. And that's where Abby Wayner went. She went to Thunder Ridge as well. Emily went there. Pretty much all of the women basketball players that I looked up to went to the Hoopsters. So I was like, I have to go play at the Hoopsters. So I went there and I played and traveled with them right away. And I was playing on 3 different teams, 10 games a day. Like, we joke around about it now. I'm like, I can't even imagine playing 1 game in one day. Like, I can't. 10, that's insane, but I loved it. I mean, that was my life. And once it got time to be, high school, I had to decide, do I stay, at Chaparral, which is where I should have gone to high school, or go to Thunder Ridge, where everyone at my Hoopsters club team played, right? And so I was kind of like, well, I'm just going to go to Thunder Ridge. So my dad committed to it with me and supported me and drove me 20 minutes every morning. That's 20 minutes without traffic, right? He'd
Yeah.
probably say it takes longer than that. But
Yeah.
so yeah, my freshman year, he took me to school every single day just so that I could play basketball at Thunder Ridge. And I mean, as you know, Thunder Ridge was known for championships throughout all sports, right? And obviously academics are important too, but the sports world at Thunder Ridge was so intriguing to me. So went and I played there, and started as a freshman and played the rest of my 4 years at Thunder Ridge and had so many different types of teams, which is the coolest part about playing sports, right? Like you think about, I think back to my freshman year and the people that I had on my team, and I'm just like, oh my God, if I were to play with them now, like today, right? We would kill it. Like we were the best team in the state, and we were, right? We really were, but we had some crazy competition at some of the other schools. But yeah, it's just so cool to see like the different types of teams that you have. And then, when I got into high school, it was obviously, this is game time, for lack of a better phrase, right? Like if you want to play, you need to work your butt off, right? And do well in the classroom, but really focus on your skills. And so again, basketball was my life every day, right? I would actually go work out before school sometimes because my dad couldn't take me in the afternoon. And one thing I want to note about growing up and my dad is that I can probably only think of, or I could probably list out how many times he wasn't out of practice or a game on two hands. And I played for, well over a decade, and he was at every single thing, the most supportive guy. And I just, thinking back at it now, I was always so annoyed by it, right? I'm like, my dad will not leave me alone. Like I'm the kid here that has my dad sitting. But he taught me what it meant to be committed to something, right? If you want to be great, you got to be committed. And he was committed to helping me be great. And so as much as I hated him back then, I definitely appreciate it now. Yeah, so played in high school, had really good teams, went to the Final Four every year except for one. Unfortunately, didn't win a championship, which obviously that was the goal, but learned a lot throughout my experience at Thunder Ridge. And then it's kind of weird. So the dynamic of club sports really changed. There was only one or two club teams in the area. And then towards the end of my career, high school career, there were like 8, right? There's a ton. And so there wasn't really any like really, really good club team. And if there was, it didn't last for very long, right? That people were always looking around. And so my senior year, I actually got the opportunity to go play with a team that was sponsored by Nike and Diana Taurasi. And so I took that opportunity and lived in California for the entire summer. And so going back to thinking about the different types of teams that I had, I mean, this was a completely different world, right? Like I learned so much about myself and about the game and just everything that I don't think I would have learned, with the teams that I had in Colorado, because I was so comfortable. Like I knew everyone. I knew the coaches, I knew the players, and it just becomes your comfort zone. And so I think that going to California and forcing me to kind of like be on my own and be uncomfortable and not be the best player was the best thing to happen to me for sure. So I've kind of given you a background on me all the way up to my senior year of high school, and all I've done is talk about sports. And that sounds crazy, but seriously, I mean, that was like the center of our world.
I think it was really interesting what you just said there about getting out of your comfort zone. I think that's one of the messages when we're talking about people progressing, right? The best way to progress is to get out of your comfort zone. What did that one summer, how much did that really, really propel you to the next step?
Man, Coach, I would dread going to practice every single day because I was, I lived in Colorado. I was only there for a certain amount of time. There were actually girls that were all over the place. There was one from Hawaii, one from Oregon, another one from the Midwest, and all of us went D1, but we were all uncomfortable, right? We all went there and we would have like 2-week sprints to where we would be in the gym from 7 in the morning, and then we would have like lunch break and then be in the gym again until 7 at night. And then we would stay at my coach's house. He would stay somewhere else, and we would all just have a slumber party at his house. But it was so hard. It was so hard. I was exhausted all the time, and I was like, I don't even think I'm that good at basketball, because I was around all these people that were so talented, and it really, really challenged my mental capacity, right? My mental toughness. And I think that's really, I thought I was tough right before that. And I wasn't.
How?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. How important, I love that word challenge. I'm sorry I interrupted you because you can continue,
No,
but
it's good.
how
Yeah.
important is it to challenge yourself like that? To
God,
grow,
it's
to
so
grow.
important. It's so important. It's so important. I mean, being comfortable, being uncomfortable is it. You have to get to that point, and the only way to get to that point is to do it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like just actually getting up and going to the gym, or actually getting up and doing your laundry. That's like getting up and doing it is the hardest part. And then once you're there, you're like, okay, I did it, right? So it really challenged me, and it was just a wake up call, right? Like you think that you're all that in a bag of chips, and you are not, right? So it prepared me for college too, because I think that like I said, you get comfortable in the bubble of Highlands Ranch and your people, your ecosystem. It's very, very tight. And going to California, it really prepared me for diversity. Like, this person doesn't give a crap about who I am. Like, she's here for herself too. And this person doesn't either. And then our coach obviously cared so much about us, but didn't care if we were sad, if we were hurt, or anything like that, right? He had one goal, and that was to build our mental toughness. And he definitely achieved that. And then when I got to college, it was kind of like, oh, I've already experienced this, so it can't be much worse than that, right?
So you just kept gaining confidence through that uncomfortableness, through that challenging yourself. That just builds confidence and builds confidence and builds confidence, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It really does. And I hate to say this, but I got to be honest. I don't think that I ever, portrayed that I wasn't confident to my team. I'm always that like fake it until you make it type person. But I don't know if I ever internally felt truly confident throughout that whole experience. And I wish that I gave myself more grace, right? Because I was always like, you are not good enough. There's no way that you can do this, this, and this. And I became timid. And it almost was a bad thing for me to be in California, because I was so unsure of who I was and what type of player I was. And then when I came back to Colorado and was playing with my high school team and started to, get looks at, some big schools, then I was like, okay, here's my reassurance. Or there was one player on our team that she was so good. I mean, so good. She ended up going to Gonzaga. Another one went to Stanford. So good. And they would call me out on everything all the time, right? But the one time that they gave me a compliment, that like just accelerated I was like, okay, cool, I got this.
Yeah.
And that would help me for like a couple days, right? Until I get my butt beat again. But having that words of affirmation from people that you really respect goes a long way.
So let me ask you this, let's go back to California again. This is so intriguing.
Yeah.
Why didn't you quit? I mean, why didn't you just call your dad and say, get to the airport, give me a ticket, and I'm coming home? What made you stick it out? What made you keep challenging yourself?
Because I didn't want any of those girls to see that I quit and be like, she's a quitter, she couldn't handle it. And I think it's more of like an ego thing, where I'm just like, I'm going to prove everyone wrong that I can do this, no matter how much I don't want to do it, So yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's probably just like an ego thing. And then when I finally got out of my own head and was able to prove to myself, like, listen, you're performing so well. Like, right. So once I got to to high school and I was doing really well, our team was doing really well, I was just like, okay, all of that hard work that I did is finally paying off. But I think that I didn't quit because it's just like my dad can't say that I'm a quitter. My teammates can't say that I'm a quitter. I just always felt like I would be, letting someone down. And the opportunity to play in California isn't something that everyone gets. And so, I mean, in my head, I was like, how is this going to look that this chick just came over here and left?
Well, and the other thing I'm going to tell you, because I've watched you and I've known you and everything else, you're just too mentally tough to quit. Yeah, that's the bottom line. You mentioned mental toughness, and you're just too mentally tough to quit. Yeah.
And so my dad would always tell me, you can't teach effort, right? Like throughout my entire life, I was never the most talented person on the floor. I wasn't. But no one was going to outwork me. And I think that probably you're right. I think that was my mentality, was just like, no matter how hard it is, no one is ever going to tell me to quit. Like no one is ever going to tell me that I'm not good enough. Like this is all going to be on my own accord. And so, yeah,
I
I
think
was
that,
the toughest. Well, I'm going to do the things that people don't want to do, and I'm going to do it the best,
yeah. And I think elite people, and I consider you an elite person. It's somebody who plays Division I basketball and has gone through some of those things that you've gone through. You're not just an elite basketball player. Something makes you tick, that didn't quit, that wanted more of a challenge, that kept saying, come on, let's go, And I know it's tough, and I know it's tough on a lot of people, but there's so many people in the business world right now,
Mm-hmm.
just in their lives, everyday lives, that are uncomfortable, that are going through some of those struggles and stuff. And what you just told them to do, to stick it out, to keep challenging yourself,
Yeah.
to not quit, to not, I have a saying, it's called fear, regret. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is so apropos with your story, because I think if you would have quit, you would be sitting here telling me right now that you have a ton of regret for quitting that opportunity. And
Right.
so I
Yeah.
think that fear, regret kind of came into your play there, and you're just like, there's no way it's going to beat me. And that's what the elite do,
Right.
right? And that's what you're teaching other
Right.
people with doing this podcast. So let's go into now. You're back into high school. You're back into trying to figure out where you want to go to college. So that's another
Mm-hmm.
step in your life that was a big, major step that you had to take. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah. Sorry, my work laptop there. So yeah, wow, what a journey the recruiting process is. All the rules, and again, it goes to this, just the status. Everyone knew who I was, because the papers were great were great with, reporting everything about all sports. I mean, I was so surprised with how much high school sports were in the news, so everyone knew that I was in that process. And so the pressure of like, I need to go somewhere, and think about, I had Abby in my head, right? Like Abby went to Duke, and that's what I want. I want to be as good as her. I want to go to these schools and prove myself, whatever. But everyone's journey is different, right? Like you can't compare yourself to, I can't compare myself to Abby. We're not apples to apples. We're not the same player. We're not the same person. We don't want the same things, right? And that was really hard to get over, was comparing myself to everyone else. And the first offer that I got was actually in 8th grade, from CU, and it was awesome. And I was like, whoa, what? Like,
Yeah.
This is real. This is happening,
Yeah.
and
It's really
and it was so cool. And then getting into high school and playing on a team that's like Hoopsters, that has, they're known nationally. And Thunder Ridge, we went to a tournament every year in Phoenix, where we could be seen by college coaches, and we always performed really well there too. So we were definitely known. And I started to get more and more exposure. And once we were able to get letters in the mail, it was like every day, we were like, okay, let's go to the mailbox and see who's reached out to you now. And it was cool. And it was definitely, it just piled on to the ego. Like, oh, this is great. I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm the best. Right. And I had that from my 8th grade year until my junior year, when I went to California. And it was like, okay, but you're not the best. So it's funny, like all of that was feeding like the ego part of me. And it was definitely driving me, it was motivating me for sure. But it can go the other way as well, where you're like, you have stupid confidence, and that's just not what you want. So I thought that I really, really wanted to go to ASU. I want to go to ASU. I have a lot of family that lives in Phoenix. I loved the coach, and that was just what I wanted to do. And it's funny, because I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then 6 months later, now Oklahoma is in the mix, and I'm like, oh, but I love that coach, and it was a common theme, right? And then Cal Berkeley came into the mix, and I was like, Joanne Boyle, I love her. But the theme was that I love the coach. And that's it. I didn't know the players. I didn't really do my research on the history of the team, or what academics were like. I was just like tunnel vision. I like the coach. She makes me feel I can trust her. That was big to me. Like I can trust her. And how is the team currently, right? Like what is their current record? I didn't look at anything else. And that's such a naive way to think about it, right? Because there's so much more that goes into it than just your coach. And no offense to you, I mean, you're a coach, but half the time you don't even like your coach, you know, you're like, they are the worst, right? And so I wanted to go to ASU, like I said, and then my junior year, they had told me that they'd given my scholarship to someone else. And that was a wake-up call for me. They'd actually given it to a point guard that went to, did she go to Monarch? Yeah, Monarch or Heritage. So it was a local girl, right? So I took that very, very personally. And again, that was like, okay, now here's the shot to my confidence. My parents were mad that I didn't, I wasn't honest with them about what had happened, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this, right? I never thought that this would happen. And it killed me. I was like, oh no, I don't. So then I had to open up and look at other places. And the same thing had happened at Oklahoma. They had said, hey, we're going to offer this girl a scholarship. You have to commit right now, or you're not coming to Oklahoma. And that's such a big thing to ask a 16-year-old, a 16, 17-year-old, like how are you supposed to make a decision? Yeah, it's a ton of pressure. And I was scared, so I said no. So those are two opportunities that I passed up, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? Like, where am I going to go? And again, I was just thinking of it in the wrong way. It was like, what are people going to think of if I went to this school versus what is going to be beneficial for Carlie, not only now, but in the future too, right? And that's like the number one thing that when my sister was going through her recruiting process, I was like, listen, you don't need to go to the school that everyone is looking at, right? You don't need to go to a place that's not going to fill your bucket. Do your research, meet the team. That was the biggest thing. I can't believe I didn't even think about meeting the team. I never met the team at ASU. I never met the team at Oklahoma. And that's who I spend my time with, majority of the time. And so it wasn't until my official visits, my senior year, that I finally began to realize there's so many other components to making this decision. And I had 5 official visits lined up, but decided to go to Florida first. And I touched down in Gainesville, never been to the state of Florida before. Touched down in Gainesville, and for some reason, it kind of gave me that like Fort Collins vibe. Like I really loved it. I grew up going to Fort Collins all the time. My dad went to CSU. And I was like, I don't know, this kind of reminds me of CSU, Dad. Doesn't it remind you? Like, Mom, what do you think? And it just felt like home. I loved the coach. The team was awesome. I mean, this sounds kind of silly, but I was like, there's no one else is a Gator. This is awesome. Everyone knows the Gators. There's only one of them. And if you're chomping at us, either you're with us or you're mocking us, but either way, you're still doing it. Right. And so, and I love that. And on my official visit there, we met Urban Meyer, which was cool because he's a winner, right? Like he had all these championships, and it was awesome. And I just felt like it was home, and I don't even know why, but it just did. Right. And I committed there. I didn't come back a free agent anymore. Like that was it. I committed there, and I never looked back. And I guess to kind of sum up that long response that I just gave you, I think that if there's one thing I could change about that whole experience, and what I would give advice to people, is just to really slow down and put yourself first. Like it's so hard to know what you want to do at 16, 17, but the one thing that you do know that you want is to be happy. And you can't measure your happiness based off of other people's opinions. And so putting that first, and be realistic, right? Like, are you actually going to play professionally? Probably not, right? Or, I mean, it's not the NBA, it's just different for women. And so really thinking big picture, but obviously putting yourself first.
So now you decide to go to Florida. So now all of a sudden you're going to the opposite side of our country.
Yeah.
Again, another huge step for you, going away from family, going away from friends. Didn't really know anybody except for what you met on your recruiting visit. So, again, you're challenging yourself, putting yourself out there. You're always out there challenging yourself, making yourself better, progressing, growing. And then you get out there and you start playing and everything else. And then what happened?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know what the heck I was thinking going across the country and not knowing a single soul there, but I don't know what I was doing. Probably, again, trying to prove people wrong, right? So yeah, preseason started. Oh my gosh, I remember our first lifting session. The next day, I couldn't extend my arms all the way. Like they were bent like this. I was so sore. I was like, what in the heck? But got all the way through preseason, which is, notoriously the worst part of the season. And we were at our last exhibition game in North Florida, and it was just one of those days where everyone was just getting hurt, but they're like, okay, let's just do one more situational thing, right? Let's put 6 minutes up on the clock. We're down 5, blah, blah. So I am a player that plays the entire court. That was my thing, right? I'm the Energizer bunny that's playing defense for 90 feet for 40 minutes. And so I was doing that, and I'd gotten beat, and went to go try to cut her off and fell and tore my ACL. And at the time, I had no idea. I never had gotten hurt before. I broke my hand in high school at a national tournament, but that's, whatever. You just put the cast on, you could still do things. And when I fell, I felt the big pop, but I didn't hear it, all the stories that you hear. And I was just kind of like, this isn't going to happen to me. It kind of just goes back to the ASU thing, right? Like all these options are going to be here for me because it's me.
Yeah.
Why not? Right.
Yeah.
This is my utopian world, and everything's going to pan out the way that I want. So, I got up and I walked off the court, no problem. And, the next morning I woke up and went to go, walk, get out of bed, and I fell, and I was like, oh no, there's something wrong here. Went to the training room, and he had told me, and I'm not afraid to be emotional, in front of people, but I don't necessarily enjoy it, and when he told me, I was like, what? Like, is that the bad one? I seriously forgot what the ACL is. So, yeah. And he told me that, and I was like, wow, this is weird. What do I do next? And, so I called my parents and told them, and rehabbed for a month and had surgery. And, I was still able to travel with the team, which was great. I learned a lot. And I'm how everyone's always like, this happens for a reason. It's happening for a reason. And you're always like, well, what reason is that? Right. You never know. But I learned so much, and I'm very grateful for that year, to be just a student of the game, and not have the stress of being a freshman and not knowing what the heck is going on out there. So
you used it as a growing experience. You used it as a learning experience for yourself. Really, that's what.
Yeah.
And you made
I tried to.
And that's what I try to tell people when you face adversity, it's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to grow and get better. And that's exactly what you did, because I know one thing, that you were still winning. You were killing it in the classroom, correct?
I was a great student in college. In high school, I don't know what I was thinking, but in college, I took that very seriously. And I didn't, so since I had 5 years, I was actually able to graduate a little bit early, and then I got my master's as well while I was there. I
played 5 years of major college basketball, Division I, SEC, University of Florida, and came out with a master's degree. There's not too many people that can do that, facing some of the adversity that you had to face. You went somewhere where you didn't know anybody. You flew all the way across the country to go to school. You had ACL surgery the first season, so you couldn't play. All these things happened, and you came through it with a master's degree because you kept your eyes on the prize and what you wanted. And along the way, I want to go through some of these. You were a co-captain. You won the Heart and Soul of the Team Award. You won the Charge Award. I guess that's taking the most charges in a season. You probably did. I think I read like 3 times, something like that, maybe even 4 times. Unsung Hero Award. You got the Practice Award. You were on the honor roll. You were on the all SEC academic team. All those things happened while you're going through all of this. And it
Hmm.
shows you that some of those earlier experiences that you had going out to California and playing on these club teams and playing for one of the best high school programs in the country, and the challenges that you always challenge yourself to, they showed out in the end, because the cream rises to the top. And when you become a
Hmm.
captain of a Division I SEC basketball team, what is that like? What responsibilities did you feel with that?
Yeah, I mean, so being a point guard, right? You're kind of just put into that leadership role. And I always start with that, but I do feel like it's just in my blood, right? Like I want to be a leader. I I want to be not like inspirational, but I want to lead with my actions. And that's kind of, and that goes back to, you can't teach people effort, right? I mean, the only reason a 5'5" kid from Colorado got to go play in the SEC was because I was known for doing the things that no one else wanted to do, right? No one else wants to play for 90 feet. And so because I was able to lead by my actions, I think that that's what put me in that role so early on in my career at Florida. And people respected it, right? Because I was like, listen, I'm not cutting any corners here, and neither should you. And I learned that from my mom, from my dad, and just from, Coach Bradley. I mean, everyone always held me accountable to that regard. And so the fact that I was able to do that still in college with women that were, older than me, had more experience than me, and was still able to, have an impact on the team, felt amazing. And I took that so seriously because I mentioned it before. I wasn't the most talented on the team, right? But I needed to make myself irreplaceable. Like I can't have someone coming in here next year and doing the same things as me. That's just not gonna happen, right? And so yeah, I was just leading by example, and that was more of my leadership style. I feel like that's how you really gain a lot of respect, right? I'm never going to ask something of someone else I'm not going to do myself. And that's definitely something that I learned from my parents growing up.
Very important. Very important right there, what you just said about leading by example and never ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. And I think that's a huge component of being a great leader. And how has that transpired, or how has that come into your life now? You're in sales now in the business world. How is that
Mm-hmm.
experience of all those things that you went through, all the adversity, the challenges, the high expectations that you put on yourself, being a leader, how's that transformed you into your position now in the business world?
Well, first and foremost, sales is you're challenged every single day, right? You have a number that you need to hit, a quota that you need to hit, and it's black or white. Either you hit it or you don't, right? And I like that because I get out what I put in, and that is how I've always operated, and I've definitely seen the fruits of my labor now. I mean, it definitely took a while, but I see it now. And I actually I was asked to do like a prospecting. So I'm in business development, right? So I go out and I'm cold calling, and I'm getting told no, or to F off, or how'd you get this number? It's by CIOs, CTOs, VPs, like all these people every day, right? And so the fact that I was able to kind of experience all of the adversity growing up kind of just gave me that thick skin that if someone were to tell me to take a hike, I'm like, I'm already on the hike, bro. I'll come back and call you tomorrow, So that's just kind of how I think about it. I mean, you're not losing anything, right? But I'm never going to see this person if he tells me no. Not a big deal. But anyway, that's how I approached it. Like, I've been told no. I've been told all the things that I do wrong by my coaches growing up, so I'm used to it. So yeah, I mean, that has definitely helped me with the sales role, because you do get told no a lot. But I was actually asked by our executives to do a prospecting just training with our team last year, and I had only been with the company for I don't think I think it was my year mark that I was doing this presentation. And it was, the reason why they wanted me to do it was because I prep a lot. And that's what sports is, right? Like, you don't just show up in a game and not have scout and not have film that you watched. And I mean, I would argue that we knew our teammates, or we knew our opponents better than they knew themselves, right? Yeah. And so I kind of take that same approach too in the business world. Is if I'm going to sell to someone, I need to know more about your job and your company and your needs than you, right? So that I can, first of all, listen to you, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, I'm doing my research and I'm proving to you that I've done my research and this is why you should talk to me. So in this presentation, I actually used an old scouting report from college. It was a scouting report against Tennessee. And we had, you know, like your players and what they do good and what their weaknesses are, and then like an overview of the team. And so I shared that on my screen. I was like, this is what I had in college, you know, and I was equating the business world is very similar to sports. Like, you show up on Monday, you're not prepping on Monday. You should be prepping on Sunday, right? Because Monday morning when you walk into the office, it's game time, right? And you don't have time to prep anything anymore. So that's kind of like my mentality is, once I come to a meeting, if I'm meeting with my executives or I'm just meeting with, you know, my colleague that we're even keel, I still always want to make sure that I'm prepared. And I obviously I owe the credit to sports and basketball for that. And I learned scout in high school, which still, I think that there's a lot of high school teams that don't do that. But Coach Bradley was very, very diligent with scout. And so, so it's funny to see it. And that's what I was saying to, you know, when I was presenting it to everyone, I was like, I hated watching film. I hated doing all this stuff. And then, you know, you hate it until you actually see the reason for why you're doing it.
The purpose of it.
So,
yeah. So tell me, I'm going to go back just real quick and then we'll kind of go on that. What was the Unsung Hero Award? What was that?
So it's the things that aren't on the stat sheet, right? That's quite honestly, that's how I got my scholarship, was doing the things that aren't on the stat sheet. I mean, if I'm pressuring the ball and I'm doing all the things, I'm disrupting the point guard, and then she throws it to, you know, the wing, and my teammate gets a steal on the stat sheet, that's Simone's steal, right? But what forced that? And it was my pressure. So things like that, they were always marked by someone that was on the bench, on our staff, but they were on the bench. So they were able to kind of evaluate the game in that way. Playing defense for freaking 40 feet for 90 minutes, you know, or 90 feet for 40 minutes. It's hard to do, and no one really wants to do it. I learned this from Coach Bradley, but are you the chicken or are you the pig? And I was like, I'm the pig. Like, I will risk my body for anything for us to get that ball, you know? And so charges were on there, things like that, effort plays. And it's kind of unfair that was an award when that's how, you know, that's the core of my game. So,
and that's what
if I didn't win that's a problem.
Yeah. And that's what you're still doing now, right? In the business world, that's exactly what you're doing now. And the one thing I want people to understand when they're watching this or listening to this is you're selling yourself way short. You're being way humble about how great of a player you were. Okay. Because I could watch you shoot 3-pointers all day long. That was like one of the thrills of my life, is watching Carlie Needles shoot 3-pointers. You were just money. And so you're selling yourself short. So you're not only were a great player, you were also an unsung hero, right? You were an unsung hero who wanted to do the best you could for other people, for your team.
Yeah. You know, have you ever heard of the concept, your love language, or have you heard of the book?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, okay, I'm definitely an acts of service type of person, and I don't necessarily need words of affirmation to continue to do those acts of service. But when you get them, it goes a long way, right? You're like, okay. It almost makes me uncomfortable when people say good things about me all the time. And that's my dad's doing, he'd be like, I'll give you praise when you deserve it. But I remember, so Coach Bradley, my high school coach, he loved Georgia, University of Georgia. He's like, you got to go to Georgia. You got to be a Bulldog, blah, blah. And then I go to Florida unintentionally. I promise that was unintentionally. But the coach there at Florida, because of Coach Bradley, I just always had this thing in my head. I was like, I want to beat this guy. I just want to beat him. And he eventually retired from being a coach and was a color commentator. And he was commentating on our game, and he had said, Carlie Needles is the glue to this team. And that, I just got goosebumps now. Like, that means a lot to me, right? Yeah. Because it has nothing to do with scoring all the points and being the best player on the court. I'm just trying to find ways to keep us, culture beats strategy. And I believe that 100% with my whole heart. And so when he said that, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And you better believe every time he played Georgia, I always texted Coach Bradley and I was like, we're about to beat your booty tonight. But, rivalries are always fun.
Coach, very, very accomplished coach. And so was his dad out in Georgia. I have to ask this question. Just, I wrote a book, and it's called Finding the 3 Ps, Finding Your Purpose, Perspective, and Passion. So let me ask you this. Tell the people what your purpose in life is. You've kind of mentioned it, and I'll kind of go through it a little bit with you here, but you've mentioned it.
Yeah. I really, and this term right now in the 21st century is not great because you think of like social media, but I really just want to be an influencer to do the right things no matter how much it hurts and no matter how much you really don't want to do it, and I just want to continue to do that and show people that you don't have to be the tallest, you don't have to be the biggest, you don't have to be the smartest. You just gotta, excuse my language, you just gotta work your ass off, and I want people to see that. So I want to influence that. I want to continue to influence that and be a leader without actually saying, hey, I'm your leader, right? I just want people to kind of follow suit.
So I have a saying, when your purpose is greater than yourself, then you've kind of reached peace. You're in a good place, and you've said it, and you probably haven't even noticed you said it, but you said it throughout this whole podcast. When you're in California, you didn't want to quit because you didn't want to have your dad think that you quit or your mom think. So that was something that was beyond yourself, right? You became a captain at your school because you wanted to help the other people get better. You got the Unsung Hero Award because you wanted your teammates to get the steal, and you wanted your team to be better. It was always about something else beside yourself. It was greater than yourself all the way through your process. And when I looked at that in the way you answered that question, you hit that right on the head. And I wish more people would understand when your purpose is greater than yourself. You want to be a leader. You want to influence people. You want to show people that you can be 5'5" and play in the SEC. It's always about somebody else. And that's your purpose in life. And that's so awesome. And so I'm going to go to this one now. What's your passion? What's your passion in life?
Man, I really do feel like my passion in life is to find a way to compete. It really is, right? Like, no matter what, if it's, this is kind of funny, but, and sorry, I have to let my dog out here. This is classic Zoom 2021 or 20, whatever year it is, right?
We're good. This is so awesome.
So, man, I do, it's competition, it's competing, it's, doing things that I really never thought that I would do or I would be able to do, like travel and to travel. I mean, the job that I have right now, I'm very underqualified for. And I think, just continually proving people wrong, challenging myself. I mean, and never giving that up, like my husband and I, we watch Family Feud every night. And we're competing. Like I said that first, like it's always something, but it's just I never want to waver with that, like that's my passion, is just to make people also want to compete, it's fun.
So you just said it again, right? To make other
Yeah.
people want to compete. Because
Yeah.
also have a saying that says purpose equals passion and passion equals purpose. I don't really think you can have one with the other. So you love to
Yeah.
compete. One of your things that you'd love to do is in your passion is competing and challenging yourself and wanting to get better and grow and do all those things. And you want to bring
Yeah.
people along with you. You just
Yeah.
said that. So that purpose and passion are always there. And then the last one
Yeah.
is in the middle is perspective. So what kind of perspective do you have on life going through some of those things that you've gone through?
Oh man, I was trying to figure out a time that this would be make sense, but and this is something that I've had to learn over time, is that not everybody wants what I want, and that's okay,
Yeah.
And I think it's just, taking the time to listen to people even when I feel like I know the right answers and I have experiences to share, and I always got something to say. I really do. I always
Yeah.
have something to say, but I'm also very hard on people because I expect so much from myself. And so I've really learned, like, over time, to not get frustrated that someone's not thinking of something the same way as me, or that someone doesn't want to do what I want to do, because that's okay. Right. And I can learn from them why they don't want those things. And in turn, that can help me grow. But I'll tell you, that was the hardest thing to learn in college, where I'd be like, why don't you want to do this? Why don't you want to,
Yeah.
follow? I can't believe I would ever say this, but follow Scout, come
Yeah.
on, like little things like that. And even, in the professional world now, the way that people handle their own book of business, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, I don't need to question people. Everyone has a reason. Everyone has a purpose. Listen to it, learn from it. And if there's somewhere where you can teach them a little bit, then great, take that opportunity, but don't force it. Everything's got to be authentic and go with the flow, let it
That's
happen
so
how it's supposed to happen.
awesome, because isn't that what our country needs? What you just said is exactly what our country needs, right?
I know.
We all have different ways
I
of
know.
looking at things and seeing things. And the other thing I want to really highlight with what you just said about perspective is listening.
Mm-hmm.
Just listen to people. I think it might be one of my top things that I teach when I teach leadership is the listening part, that you have two of these and one of these. And you have two
Right.
of these because God wanted us to use that more than he wants us to use that. And I think
Yeah.
great leaders listen, and they don't just listen, they intently listen. They listen with a
Yeah.
purpose, right?
Yeah. That was kind of my 2021. So to add on to that, I also think that reflection is very, very important.
Yes.
What? She keeps
You're
whining
fine.
at me.
You're fine.
I think that reflection is very important. And like, what's worked for me is journaling, educating myself,
Growing.
just growing, just reflecting on that, and looking back, right? Like, how often did people probably look back and like, oh yeah, high school, whatever. But like, if you actually look back at your life and think about what happened and when, I'm like, oh my God, this is probably why. My husband's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, well, you want to know why? I know why, because I've thought of all these things, and this is why I'm crazy. Like, you just have to reflect. And sometimes you find the answers of things that are really, holding you back right now in the present. So yeah, I learned how important reflection is.
And reflection is growth. Reflection is growth.
Yeah.
And I call it list and learn. And you just said it.
Mm-hmm.
Reflecting back, you kind of list out things, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, man, I learned this from that. I learned this from that. And the great leaders of our world, the great leaders of history, have all listed and learned, and they're humble
Mm-hmm.
like you are, and they, they're accountable. And
Yeah.
you've shown today that you're a great leader because you're accountable. You've shown you're a great leader because you're learning and growing. You're showing you're a great leader because you put people first. And
Yeah.
I wrap this up. I don't want to take all your time, and I know
No, you're good.
this has been
I have a question for you.
so exciting. It's just so
Yeah.
exciting to
Joe,
talk to you.
I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
you, I think this is great. What you're doing and the purpose and in all of that stuff. Like I truly believe in all of that. Oh no, I forgot what I was going to ask you now. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you're good.
Circle back to me. I hear my dog wanting to go outside and I don't want to go out there right now.
No.
I'll think about the question and I'll circle back with you. But it was somewhere along the lines of, at what point do you go from like teaching from learning, right? Like that's never even a line that you cross. You're always learning, you're always teaching, but being able to like relate to people, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing that with all these different players that you're talking to? And
I'll be honest with it, because I absolutely love all you guys. I mean, I think I love learning, but I love learning about people. I love learning about what makes Carlie step outside her comfort zone and go to California and do that.
Right.
What makes Carlie step out of her comfort zone and go to Florida when she's probably homesick and doing all those things, and what got her over the hump to do that and make, and evolve into a captain at an SEC school. It just is so exciting for me to learn about you at the deeper level in terms of what makes you tick, what makes you and being able to help others, because others are going through some of the difficulties on a daily basis of trying to get outside their comfort zone. I have a thing that says, I think what you should try to do is step outside your comfort zone at least 3 times a day so you get used to doing it.
Yeah.
And that might be something simple as just saying hi to somebody in the line at the grocery store if you're introverted, just to step outside your comfort zone, to challenge yourself. I have a saying that says, you coach it, you practice it, and you challenge it. You coach whatever you're trying to coach, and however you want somebody to do something. It doesn't have to be in sports. It can be as a leader of a business. How do you want them to write their reports? I don't know. How do you want them to make the sales call? And then you got to help people, and by practicing it with them. But the main thing is you got to challenge it, right? You got to put them in situations that they're not comfortable in. So when that really comes to fruition, when somebody, like you just said, you cold call somebody and they say, how did you get my number? And why did you call me? Because those are the situations that put you under pressure, right? And that challenge you. So I don't know, you opened a whole can of worms. I could go a whole nother hour.
I know.
Just keep
learning. This is interesting to me too, because I think about it. I think about it often, right? I'm always asking people, well, what if this? I'm just notorious for overthinking, right? But I do think that there's always room for improvement. There's always room to learn. But the one thing I didn't say that I learned was how to lead different people, right? Because not everyone
is the same
or needs the same thing, right? I mean, I had a teammate, her name was Simone, in college, and I could say the meanest things to her, really get on her. And she would be better from it, right? But then there was another player that I had, her name's Haley, and she's our post player, love her to death. She needed more encouragement. And I needed a player like that needed that, because I needed to work on it, because I was like, whatever, tough as nails, like there's no exception to any rule. Like you work your ass off and that's it. And she needed just a different type of leadership. And it's crazy that like that taught me so much. I mean, really, it gave me a heart, I think, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. And what is it going to do for you in the business world? Because how many people, it's the same thing, right? Everyone's changing and everyone's different. And it's so this has been so awesome. I just get so excited when I talk to you guys about this kind of stuff, because
I'm sure
you're the leader.
I'm jealous of you.
Well, you're the person who's leading our, we need young leaders in our world, in our country. And what you're going to do is blow this thing up with how you're going to lead in your business career and as a mother and
Right.
as a wife and and all those different things. And I just can't tell you how proud I am of you for all of you
Thank you.
that all you've done. And you've made
Thank
us
you.
all
I
proud.
appreciate that.
And I
Thank
just,
you.
if there's anything I can ever do, just let me know. But we could go on for this forever. And
I know. Yeah.
if you want to talk some more about this kind of stuff, I would love to. I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing now. It's shameless plug.
Yeah. I wrote down your book, and I'm definitely gonna buy
I
it, and
hope
I'm
you
gonna
like
read
it.
it.
I'm trying to write another one. I'm in the middle of writer's block right
Okay.
now, but trying to write another
Yeah.
one. Just trying to help people. Just trying to help people grow.
Hmm.
Just trying to help people become better leaders. Build culture.
So I'm a podcast listener. Do you have a podcast that you listen to
I do.
that's like kind of along?
I do. I listen to Ed Milet is one of my guys. I love Ed Milet. The other one I've been listening to is a guy named Tim Kite and Urban Meyer, Focus 3. I just started listening to
Okay.
that one. Really good one. You mentioned Urban Meyer earlier. Huge fan of Urban Meyer. Really a huge fan. And I like listening
Yeah.
to John Maxwell. I take my walks, but my main one that I've been listening to for about a year now has been Ed Milet, and that's a big one.
Okay.
John Maxwell's been good, and so has the Focus 3 with Tim Kite and Urban Meyer. It's been great. So
Cool.
I want to
There's
thank
a
you. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I remember what I was gonna say was when you think about, do you ever ask people like what their goals are, right? Like I was talking to this as I say to this chick, to this the young lady a couple days ago, and she's in a role that she's really unhappy with, and was like, I was so successful at my last job and had all these like excuses, right? And she's like, I need you to help me find a new job. And I was like, well, you need to think about what your goals are.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you watched it, but did you, Michael Jordan, his
Yeah.
documentary
Uh-huh.
on ESPN? And Phil Jackson is just, oh my God, the way that he can get all stars to
Yeah.
be on a cohesive team is just, that's a
Amazing.
talent. But when he said that they hadn't won a championship yet, and so he put a light, and beamed it right into where that banner would go.
Yeah.
And it was just a daily reminder. And so I'm so big, and this is when I talk about journaling, I'm so big about like, if I want this and I write it down, then it's me holding myself accountable. And so I told her, I was like, you need to have your own goal. What is that goal? I know you're only 23, whatever, but like, that doesn't mean that you can't have a goal. Right. I never really know how to write my goals, because like, I'm like, okay, I want to make a certain amount of money by the time I'm 30. That's a goal. But then everything else underneath that, I don't really know. It's just like a play it by ear type of thing. Do you still write down goals, or do you have goals, or how?
Yeah,
do you,
I do. I wrote down goals when
you
I started my Coach Joe White 97 Consulting LLC.
Mhm.
I wrote down I
Mhm.
wanted to speak to this many groups. I wanted to work with this many businesses within this first year.
So very specific. Yeah.
Okay. But to me, Carlie, and this is what I want you to understand this, and I think you do this really well. It's more about the process. I tell people this: I want you to win the process of achieving the goals more than I want you to achieve the goal.
Mhm.
Okay. Winning the process. So you can set these goals and put these goals down, but what's your process in trying to reach those goals? Okay.
Right.
So if I want to run a 4-minute mile, which I'll never be able to do in my lifetime, if I wanted to run a 4-minute mile, what's my process to be able to do that? Okay. So
Right.
for example, when I was in college, my 2 goals in college were I was going to graduate in 4 years and I wanted to get drafted by Major League Baseball. Okay.
Mhm.
So what I really figured out, again, it goes back to that fear regret. In the end of it, whether I got drafted or didn't get drafted, or graduated in 4 years or didn't graduate in 4 years, I wanted to make sure that I did everything possible, the process, to make it happen. And if it didn't
Right.
happen, I can still look myself in the mirror and say, I did, I wouldn't have a regret and said, well, if there's that one time when we were supposed to run 20 sprints and I only ran 18, that might have
Right.
prevented me from getting drafted. Well, I didn't want that to happen. So I wanted to win the process. So I felt good either way. I was lucky I
Yeah.
achieved both goals. I got drafted
Yeah.
twice and I graduated in 4 years, but it's because I won the process, not because I won the goal, if that makes
Right.
any sense.
Right.
So whatever your
Yeah.
goals are, set your process and then make sure that you fear regret so that when you get to the point of achieving or not achieving your goal, which is okay, as long as
Hmm.
you won the process, you have won. You're okay.
Right.
I don't know if that
No,
makes
that
any
makes sense.
sense.
No, it does. And this will be the last thing I say, because I could definitely talk your ear off. But
Yeah.
my coach, Amanda Butler, I learned a lot from her. And I had mentioned that, I was looking at schools and I was only thinking about the coaches, and I shouldn't have done that. But I say that loosely, right? Like, yes, you should obviously like your coach. She taught me so much, and I never had a female coach ever. She's my first one. And so I wasn't really sure how it was going to go, but she taught me, like, you handle your business like a woman. You trust the process, you're disciplined. And the one thing that she said, we had lost, I think we had lost 3 games in a row, and we were at Vandy and we're about to win. And it was double overtime. So we were in double overtime. And this girl, her name's Christina Fogarty, she was an All-American, threw up this shot at half court, not half court, like really far out of the 3-point line. Buzzer runs out, banks it in, and we lose. And we're just like deflated, right? Because we're doing the right things. We're busting our butt in practice. We're doing the process. We're trusting the process, and we're not getting the results that we wanted. And she had come into the locker room and wrote up this Bible verse. And I don't even know the entire Bible verse or anything like that, but I just kind of take the Cliff Note version and I run with that, or I've ran with it since. She had said, do not grow weary in doing what is right. You'll reap your harvest when it's ready. And that has been like the most influential thing that I've, heard from all my coaches, because I still think about it now, especially in sales.
Yeah.
And, you're just like, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm not seeing a result. And so if I have to give advice to anyone, that's always what I lead with, is that if when you're doing right or wrong every day,
right.
If you're competing, there's a difference between working hard and competing. Everyone can work hard, right?
Yeah.
But are you competing? Are you pushing yourself? And so if you're doing those things every day, you'll reap your harvest when it's ready. You just don't know when that's going to be yet. And you got to trust that that's the case. And so, I probed that question to kind of end with that. But
so awesome.
My life motto.
I seriously, and you're going to think I'm weird about this, I have goosebumps right now because this has been so exciting. This has been so good, and it's going to help so many people. You're an inspiration.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy you reached out.
And when you talk about influencing people, that's what this is going to do, and that's what you're going to be. You are an influencer. You are an inspirer. You're going to inspire a lot of people, not just with this, but throughout the rest of your life. So we will keep in contact.
Yes, please do.
And I'm the biggest, I don't know what your company name is, but I know one thing, whatever that company is, and you're working for them. So now I'm a huge fan of that company and you, because I know what you're doing there.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Tell your family hi, tell your sister I said hi, and thanks again for coming on.
I was reaching out. It was quite a surprise, and it was a pleasant surprise. I had a really good time.